Hello guys, what is up? My name is Dylan. Welcome back to the Popcorn Podcast. Welcome, of course, if you're new. I hope everyone's doing fantastic. This video, you guys already know what it is. I'm going to be talking about everything that I watched in the month of November. It is crazy to think that we're already in the final month of the year. 2021 for me, I don't know about you guys, but 2021 has gone by so quick. But just because we are in the final month of the year doesn't mean we don't have anything else to look forward to, because of course, as you probably know, we still have a couple of new releases right around the corner that I'm sure you guys are just as excited for as I am. But we're not talking about those in today's video. What we are talking about, like I said, is everything that I watched in the month of November. So without further ado, let's get on into the video. So as you guys can see, I managed to clock in 35 entries for the month of November, which is more or less one a day. So it's a pretty solid number, I'd say. I'm not sure how many I'm going to be able to do in December, but we'll see. Anyways, on the 1st of November 2021, I finally watched School of Rock in its entirety. So when I was younger, I sort of saw bits and pieces of School of Rock, but never the fully, the whole movie, the whole completed film. And at the start of this month, that is exactly what I managed to watch. I think School of Rock is just a terrific film. It is such a great feel-good film. And I'm not really the biggest fan of Jack Black, but I have to admit, in this film, he really impressed me. His performance was just excellent, and I think like a lot of the times it just felt like he wasn't acting at all. Like he really grew into his character, and he's one of the biggest reasons why this film works as well as it does. So yeah, School of Rock, it's such a fun film to watch. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen this film, but it was a great first time for me seeing this film in its entirety. Anyways, on the 2nd, I watched Army of Thieves, which is on Netflix, which is sort of the prequel to Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, which came out earlier this year. And this was also another pretty fun film to just sort of sit back and turn your brain off to. I thought the cast was quite fun to watch, and the whole film just in general was really entertaining on a whole. It's not entirely sort of revolutionary to the heist genre, but it does have quite a few fun sequences to sort of really just to enjoy. But anyways, on the 3rd, I watched Titane, or Titane, however you say it. This is the French film directed by Julia Ducournau, and of course many of you will know, but this won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival earlier this year. And Julia Ducournau as a director is someone I've had my eye on for quite some time, ever since she released her debut feature film Raw, which I'm a very big fan of. I think that film is it's such a different and such a polarizing film as well, and I really like that film. And this is the highly anticipated second feature from Julia Ducournau, and in many ways I feel like a lot of the things she does and achieves here in this film is a huge step up from Raw. I still prefer Raw to Titane because it is a bit more logical, and it's easier to sort of follow. This film is a little more ambiguous and definitely a little more ambitious from her side. And I think it just comes down to personal preference. If you have seen Raw and you haven't seen Titane, I'm going to call it Titane, you'll know that these films are not for the faint of heart. They have some incredibly shocking imagery, and they are some of the most disturbing films I think one can see. But Titane, I admired a lot of it, but not all the aspects completely worked for me. I'm gonna have to check it out for a second time to really sort of make my mind up on it, on whether or not I actually prefer it to Raw. But for now, I think Raw is still still my personal preference of the two. But anyways, on the 4th, I rewatched Dune again. I think this was my 3rd time watching it. On the 5th, I watched Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. This was not great. It did have some fun aspects to it. I thought some of the sci-fi stuff that they sort of had in this film was quite unique, and I enjoyed watching the first half of this film. I think the opening scene is really good as well. But just all in all, it's a very, very average film. It's a very good looking film. The special effects are terrific. But overall, from a story perspective, I think this film is really, really average. Anyways, on the 5th, later on that night, I watched Eternals when this came out on opening day. And I'm a little conflicted on this film. I think I admire a lot of the things it tries to do, and I like the film for it being very different from some of the stuff Marvel has done in the past. But I don't think as an entire film everything fully works. And if you want to know a little more on what I thought about the film in a little more depth, I have a review for it which I'll link in the description box down below. So on the 6th, I rewatched Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, which is an absolutely incredible film. It's a 5 out of 5 stars in my book. Directed by Alejandro Inarritu and shot by the incredible Emmanuel Lubezki. And the two of them, just what they're able to do and how they're able to elicit such feelings from this film, this is an experience to be had. It is so different from so many other films out there, and just the visual language that the two of them create, and of course inevitably carry on in the film The Revenant, of course, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen with Leo in it, is just incredible. And the performances here are just stunning. This is one of my favorite performances from Michael Keaton for sure. It blows my mind every time I see it, and yeah, Birdman is just an absolutely terrific watch. I would even go as to say it is a masterpiece. But yeah, on the 7th, I watched Ingrid Goes West, starring Aubrey Plaza and Elizabeth Olsen. This was quite an interesting watch. It's a sort of dark comedy, and it sort of discusses the dangers and the dark side of social media, and how people can become obsessed with a certain image of people online. And it's quite funny as well, so it's not it's not this really depressing tale, but yeah, I thought this one was really, really interesting. I don't think it's an amazing film, but I thought the approach to its subject material was really interesting, and I had a good time watching this film for sure. But on the 8th, I watched Half Nelson with Ryan Gosling in it, and I've been meaning to watch this for quite a while. And although I do like the story behind it, it's quite simple. It's about the relationship between a teacher who is a drug addict and one of his students, and how the two sort of learn to make each other better, which is a really heartwarming sort of core. I wasn't a huge fan of how the film was shot. I thought it was a little jarring, even though it was very different to what we usually see. So yeah, 3 out of 5 stars for me. And then on the 9th, I watched Spencer, and this is of course getting a lot of awards buzz, particularly for Kristen Stewart, who a lot of people are going to say is going to win Best Actress for her portrayal as Princess Diana. I thought the film overall was really good. I thought some of the dialogue I wasn't the biggest fan of, but Kristen Stewart's performance here is really what makes this film work. This is her film for sure, and the cinematography was fantastic. I really love how they were able to sort of capture the essence of, I think it was the early 90s or late 80s, around that period. So yeah, Spencer, I thought it was a pretty great watch. And then later on that night, I watched Under the Silver Lake, which is an A24 produced film starring Andrew Garfield. This was one of the weirdest films I have seen in a long time, but it was weird in the way that I kind of liked it. It's basically a film about nothing, and you just watch people run around, I think, LA, effectively talking about just nonsense for 2.5 hours. But I thought it was pretty funny, and It has the same director as one of my favorite horror films of the past couple of years. It Follows. So a lot of the craft behind Under the Silver Lake was great, and I really loved the way that the film looked, how bright it was, and yeah, I don't think I was ever bored, even though it's not really a film about anything. But yeah, anyways, on the 10th, I rewatched Ghostbusters, 1984 Ghostbusters. I think this film is obviously just a bundle of fun. It is a classic for good reason. But then on the 10th, later on that night, I watched Ghostbusters 2 for the first time, and I was really disappointed. I didn't think this was nearly anywhere near as good as the first film. On the 11th, I watched a new rom-com that is currently on Netflix called Love Hard, which stars Nina Dobrev. And this wasn't bad, you know. I have a soft spot for rom-coms, and this was one of the best ones I'd seen in a while. This and Palm Springs that came out earlier this year. But yeah, on the 13th, I watched Red Notice, another Netflix film which has gone on to become the most popular and most successful Netflix film, no doubt because of the three leads, Gal Gadot, Dwayne Johnson, and of course Ryan Reynolds. I thought this film was quite bad. Just from a story perspective, it's just really bland and really just doesn't do anything different. A lot of the twists I saw coming from a mile away, to be honest, and that's not just me saying, oh, I was smart enough to figure out this film, so that's why it was bad. I just think on a whole, I just was not a fan of this film. But later on that night, I watched All Too Well, the short film, which is the music video for Taylor Swift's new song. Now, I'm not a fan of Taylor Swift. I don't really listen to her music that much, but I heard a lot of talk about this particular short film, so I managed to check it out, and I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty impressed with this. It stars Dylan O'Brien and Sadie Sink, and of course it is a song and a story about a relationship that inevitably comes to an end, and it sort of goes into the reasons why. Apparently this is a song about Taylor Swift's relationship with Jake Gyllenhaal, and this is I watched this film, and all I'm gonna say to you, Jake, if you're watching, just run, mate, just run. On the 14th, I finally watched LA Confidential. I thought this film was absolutely terrific. I loved the three leads, Russell Crowe, Guy Pearce, and Kevin Spacey. I think all three of them do such a great job, and I loved the way the location being LA was captured. I was such a big fan of it, and I hadn't seen LA sort of shot like that before. It really felt like a location that if you were going to go around the corner, there'd be danger lurking right around the corner. And yeah, just that sense of atmosphere created was terrific, and the film does go to some pretty interesting places, and I'm excited to check it out for a second time. On the 15th, I rewatched 10 Things I Hate About You. This is one of my favorite rom-coms, starring Julia Stiles and of course Heath Ledger, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and it is a classic in the genre. You know, the I Love You Baby sequence from Heath Ledger is iconic. Nothing really more to say about 10 Things I Hate About You. It is it's a classic. On the 17th, I did not watch Spider-Man No Way Home. This was just sort of a log for me watching the new trailer that came out, and I did a reaction to it. So if you're interested, go and check it out. I'll leave a link to it in the description box down below. Later on the 17th, I watched Steven Spielberg's Jaws, which is a classic. It's a masterpiece, nothing more to say. Again, on that night, the 17th, I revisited the very first Superman film directed by Richard Donner, one of the most influential films of all time. You know, it's easy to look at superhero films today and just forget the ones that paved the way first, and I absolutely love Superman, the movie. I don't think it's a perfect film, but I respect the hell out of it, and it's a film that I cherish quite a bit. But anyways, on the 18th, I rewatched Apocalypse Now, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. This film is a masterpiece. I've said it once and I'm going to say it again. I have no idea how Francis Ford Coppola made The Godfather Part 2, and Apocalypse Now in the same decade. Apocalypse Now is one of the greatest war films made, one of the greatest films of all time if you ask me. But yeah, anyways, later on again that night I watched for the first time Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It is hailed as one of the greatest comedies of all time, and for good reason. I did laugh quite a bit actually. You know, the humor wasn't my normal cup of tea, but I did find myself laughing quite a bit, and I had quite a bit of fun with Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars for that one. And then on the 19th, I revisited One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, starring Jack Nicholson. Masterpiece, check it out if you haven't. And then later on that night, I watched Chinatown, also starring Jack Nicholson, which is another really great sort of neo-noir thriller that goes to some really interesting places come the third act. The reason I was watching so many 70s films is actually because I did a collaboration, a little discussion with Hollywood Town, who's another YouTuber over here. So if you want to check out our discussion, we were listing off our top 5 favorite films from the 70s. So if you guys want to check out the discussion video, I will leave a link to it in the description box down below. On the 21st, I watched Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is the brand new Ghostbusters film starring Paul Rudd, McKenna Grace, Finn Wolfhard, and quite a few more actors, but I won't spoil anything if you haven't seen it. I thought this was a terrific film. I think this is the second best film in the franchise, and I really love the direction that this whole film took. It is sort of a mix between Ghostbusters and Stranger Things, both of which I love. So this was a really enjoyable time for me at the movies. So yeah, on the 22nd, I watched Dune for the 4th time. But this time was probably the most special because I went to check this out in IMAX in London, and then after the film had finished, there was a live Q&A in person with Denis Villeneuve, the director. And of course, if you know me and you know how much I love movies, you will know that Denis is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I shot like a little vlog for this film, so if you guys want to also check that out, I'll leave a link to it in the description box down below. I had such a wonderful and unforgettable night. So yeah, guys, if you want to check out some of my thoughts on that experience, I made a video and I'll leave a link to it in the description box down below. On the 23rd, I watched Ghostbusters. This is Ghostbusters, I think it's called Ghostbusters Answer the Call. I'm not sure why it just says Ghostbusters here. This was the 2016 film where they sort of rebooted the Ghostbusters franchise with an all-female cast. I don't know why I bothered with this film. It was just really bad. And that's not because the cast was all female. I just thought it was a really bad film. I'm sorry. But yeah, on the 24th, I watched Tick Tick Boom, which is a musical which is on Netflix right now, starring Andrew Garfield. And I think this film, Andrew Garfield is seriously one of the most talented actors working today. I did not know he had this in the bag. He can sing, he can dance. So if you're a fan of musicals, definitely don't miss Tick Tick Boom. It's great. I think it was really great. On the 25th, I watched King Richard. Now, this was interesting because a lot of you probably won't know this, but I'm a huge fan of tennis. Not as much as, you know, I love movies, but I've been following tennis since I was a kid. I still play tennis, and I've been waiting for a movie about tennis and that revolves around tennis that is actually good, that is actually decent. And for that reason, I was excited to check out King Richard because I'd heard a lot of good things about it. So I finally watched it and I liked it, didn't love it. I thought that it reminded me a lot of, unfortunately, it reminded me a lot of Bohemian Rhapsody in 2018. I thought I wasn't a big fan of the direction. I thought it was quite bland. I didn't think the editing and just the general filmmaking behind this film was that impressive. Having said that, I do think the performances here are just terrific, particularly Will Smith, who more or less carries this film. And overall, of course, this is a film about the origin of Venus and Serena Williams' stardom, how they rose to into the tennis world. I've never been the biggest fan of either of them, but I do, and I always have respected them. And coming out of this film, I did feel somewhat inspired. I will say that. So King Richard, didn't love it, but I did like it. But yeah, anyways, on the 27th, I rewatched one of my all-time favorites, The Hangover. This is a classic in my books. I absolutely love this film. I basically watch this film at least once a year. The whole Wolfpack dynamic is something that has been prominent in my life and the life of my sort of friendship social circle for years, and a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the jokes, a lot of the banter is very much inspired by this first Hangover film. And yeah, I absolutely love The Hangover. 9 out of 10 for me. Anyways, on the 28th, sorry, I watched Braveheart for the first time. This film is one of the most epic films ever. A lot of people said this is a masterpiece, and I definitely can see why. I absolutely love the score for this film. I think James Horner, rest in peace. A lot of people hail Titanic as his best work, and rightly so. But for me, the music in Braveheart is it's his best work. It's my favorite of his movie scores. So yeah. Anyways, later on that night, I watched Ridley Scott's The Counselor, and this was just, yeah, guys. I did not have a good time watching this film. It is basically an all-star cast just spouting lines that don't even make sense. I think it's the same writer who did No Country for Old Men, which is so surprising, but in this film I think they just completely, no pun intended, lost the plot, because this film was just a load of nonsense. But at the same time, there is a lot of talent behind this. Ridley Scott, the cast, Michael Fassbender, Javier Bardem, Penelope Cruz, Brad Pitt's in this as well. So yeah, this should have been great. I knew it was going to be bad going in, but nevertheless I still checked it out and it was still bad. So yeah, The Counselor, I'm not going to come back to this maybe ever. So yeah. Anyways, on the 29th I watched House of Gucci, which is Ridley Scott's second film of this year, the first of which being The Last Duel, which came out last month or 2 months ago, I'm not sure, and I definitely preferred that film to this. I thought House of Gucci was quite a bit of a mess actually. Jared Leto in this film, you know, in the past I've actually defended him. I think he's talented, but in this film he was just bad. I'm sorry, he was just really bad. I think Lady Gaga and Adam Driver were pretty good in it, and overall the story is quite interesting. I was quite interested in the story, but the runtime was just far too long. It was sort of pushing on 3 hours, and yeah, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and I think I was being generous, and I'll stick to that score. But I was quite disappointed because I think this film had a lot of potential. But yeah, anyways, on the 30th, which happened to be yesterday, last night, I watched Shiver Baby, which is a film that actually, it kind of blew me away, I won't lie. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's a great film, and I really related to the main character in this film. I thought a lot of the problems that she goes through, I'm currently going through right now. And I thought the direction was terrific. The filmmaking behind the film was excellent, sort of putting you in the atmosphere of a family gathering where everyone is asking you questions and there's so much pressure, and you just don't want to be there. I thought that atmosphere created was spot on. So yeah, Shiver Baby I thought was such a great way to round off the month of November and head into the month of December. I think this film I watched basically at the perfect time in my life. I really resonated with it, and yeah, I loved it. And speaking of which, guys, I have some really exciting videos planned for this month, so stay tuned. Let me know what you thought of some of the movies that I managed to check out in the month of November, and let me know also what you managed to watch in this month. Any surprises, any films that you absolutely hated, let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, be sure to leave a like if you did enjoy, and consider subscribing to the channel if you are new to jump on board. And yeah, guys, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for checking this out, and I will catch you very soon in the next.